Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second half, shall we? All right, folks, I cannot wait until the live stream, 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday Nightmares, live from upstate New York. I hope to see you all there. Let's jump into this encounter. All right, guys. This was about 23 years ago, and I had no clue what a dogman was and didn't believe in anything supernatural back then. I was hunting for wild hog in one of the southernmost areas of the Great Dismal Swamp. This is far south of the wildlife refuge where it ends at the Albemarle Sound in eastern North Carolina. I had put my boat in the water at a friend's house about a half an hour by water from where I went into the swamp. This was in late November, so it was pretty cold and really overcast, and it got dark at around 5 or so. It was about noon when I tied up and got out of the boat. The first hour or so was pretty uneventful. I was working my way inland. Some of this part of the swamp can be walked through when the tide is low. It was just marshy, with deeper canals and bogs scattered about. But there aren't any trails or marked paths or anything, so you really have to pay attention where you're going and definitely need a compass, since you cannot see the sun. It's very dark there, even on bright, sunny days. I was back in there for a couple of hours looking for some signs from hog. I could tell some had been back there at some point, but it had been a while. I got a little further in and started smelling what I thought was a boar. It's rutting season, and male wild hogs have a very distinct stench. It's a musky, kind of fermented smell mixed with old poop and urine. Kind of hard to explain if you've never smelled it before. However, this was different. It was musky, but more like an outside dog that was soaking wet. I stopped and looked and listened, and after 10 or so minutes started hearing snuffing and breathing that came and went. After a bit, I started to hear some growls. I started to get a little freaked out because it didn't sound like a hog and it sounded big. I stopped again and knelt down and waited and looked around. Where I was at the brush was very thick, so I really couldn't see more than 20 feet in any direction. That's when I started to see movement. It definitely was not moving like a hog. It was kind of low, walking crouched down, but not on all fours. And I was only getting glimpses of it. And it would stop. It was maybe 40 feet away. This is when I actually started to get scared. Now, I was born in northeastern Kentucky and spent most of my free time as a kid in the woods, camping, riding dirt bikes, and I've always been comfortable, even in the deep woods. So when I moved to North Carolina, I fell in love with the swamp. This is the first time I think I had ever really felt actual fear. I had a Mossberg 590 shotgun full of 3-inch double-aught buck, but no extra shells and no pistol. The 590 also has a bayonet lug, so I took out the bayonet and put it on. I started backing up, not taking my eyes off of where I had last seen whatever it was. A few minutes later, I hear it again, a little further to my left now. I'm probably 3/4 of a mile into the swamp, which doesn't seem very far, but the terrain does not make for real quick movement. This goes on for another 20 minutes while backtracking out as fast as I can, and I'm still hearing it and catching glimpses of movement, and the smell is getting stronger. After a bit, I realized that this thing has gotten between me and the way that I had come in from my boat, and I'm really starting to panic now. I try and start getting further away from it and headed in the right direction, and then I see it again. It's standing up, and it's pretty damn tall. It was still back in the brush, so I could really not make out any details as it was dark back there. I actually wanted to cry and run, but I knew that was bad. It didn't seem like it wanted to get into the water, so I started wading through the canal, heading back toward my boat. I started to put some distance between myself and it, so I got back onto hard ground and moved a little faster. But I can still hear it snuffing and growling and moving through the brush, but it's not that close anymore. I made it back to my boat, and I'm soaking wet and freezing, but thank God I made it out of there, and just in time as it was getting foggy and starting to drizzle. I'd never been that scared in my life. I made it back to my buddy's house and told him what happened, and I can tell he knows something when I tell him where I went. He brings me in and gives me some hot coffee with a big slug of bourbon in it. When I calm down, he takes me to the other house out back of his property where his granddad lives. I'd met his granddad before, but he had always kind of been standoffish to me. I found out later that he just had real bad PTSD from Korea. And my buddy and his family had lived there since before the Civil War. I think his grandpa's great-granddad had been a slave around there, but that's another story for another day. I guess what I mean to say is his family has history in that area and knew that place a lot better than me. After I told his granddad what happened, he stood up and looked me in the eye and said, "Do not go back there. You're lucky you made it out. That's where the big dogs live." I left and went home and slept for about 18 hours. I tried to forget about that experience and started to believe I was just seeing crap and freaked myself out. I eventually forgotten all about it until a few years ago when a Dogman encounter video came up on my YouTube feed. I was curious what the hell a Dogman was, so I started listening to it. And the whole experience came flooding back. It was very similar to what happened to me. I started looking into it, and there have been other sightings and encounters in eastern North Carolina. That's my experience. I'm 44 now and still live in coastal North Carolina and haven't been back anywhere close to that area. I still hunt and love the outdoors and the swamp, but I don't go that far anymore. All right, guys. So in that area, the Great Dismal Swamp, I've shared an experience a couple months back, actually, about a helicopter that had crashed out there. And apparently it had 2 canine-like cryptids on it. But the history of the Great Dismal Swamp and what he had mentioned, his friend's family living there for centuries, and his great-granddad's granddad possibly had been a slave. Well, the Great Dismal Swamp has a lot of historical lore, I guess you'd say. A lot of runaway slaves would run away from these plantations that they were forced to work at. And they would run into that swamp, knowing full well that dogmen lived in those swampy areas. And it was either going back and facing the plantation owner, and which was certain death or abuse, or going and possibly getting freedom and quite possibly running into these creatures. But it just goes to show that these creatures, seeing these things in that swamp, was in the runaway slaves' mind safer than dealing with these plantation owners, which is crazy if you think about it, because who knows how many slaves did not escape the Dismal Swamp. Obviously, some did, because the tales of these creatures running through the swamp chasing slaves and such had existed, and it's still, if you look it up, you can actually find like some old articles of old tales of dogmen, werewolves, and the Great Dismal Swamp and slaves. It's pretty interesting that in the plantation owners would not go into that swampy area. They'd stop right there where it began, and they'd leave because they knew that either they got their freedom or they were dead. But we are not going in there after them. Really quick, I just wanted to look it up. Ranger Pat Higgins has never seen this creature from the Dismal Swamp. Ranger Pat Higgins has never seen this beast, mind you, but if you want his honest opinion, there is a creature 7.5 feet tall, hairy, as a shaggy rug, and smelling like a sewer that comes out of the Dismal Swamp periodically to stomp through his park at night. And there's my cat scaring the crap out of me. Some call it skunk foot. There is something out there we cannot explain, who has combined a half a dozen of sketchy reports. We get all kinds of calls. Lorene Day, one of the 4 rangers assigned to the 760-acre park. We get thrill seekers as well. Ones who can say we still bring Boy Scouts to camp there. Most of the other rangers take it with a grain of salt. They say the next thing we're going to report is UFOs. That's just one of the articles that you can find. Let me check really quick. But if you do type in the Great Dismal Swamp, it does talk about these slaves running for fear. I think this is it right here. The nuisance of the Dismal Wolfman. The fearsome Dismal Swamp on the border of Virginia and North Carolina, already a fearsome place, but here a Great Dismal Swamp, and that's the real name. British colonialists thought it was a bit dismal, so the name simply stuck. I might do something similar to mess with future people if I ever get to name something. The strange Dismal Swamp monster, which one day this week killed 7 of Ed Smith's dogs and ate them, and later attacked Mr. Smith himself, has been seen again. Last night, L. Frank Ames, a merchant, saw the same thing and suffered from its various ravages. Hearing strange noises, Mr. Ames went out with his pistol. He thought at first it was a strange dog. When he learned it was the much sought monster. Mr. Ames shot several times, but without effect. The thing growled savagely, being sent after it. 6 dogs refused to have conflict and fled in terror. They can not be induced to make an attack. The unknown creature escaped without being harmed. Afterwards, it appeared at the home of Mr. Henry Jordan and sat defiantly on a covered wall. Descriptions is like the one furnished by Mr. Smith, a large, gaunt form, long yellow hair, and vicious eyes. Another monster has come forth from the Dismal Swamp jungles and is spreading alarm among farmers. Last week, an unclassified animal, not indigenous to the highlands, terrorized residents so that they were afraid to leave home at night. After being chased by numerous armed posses, this beast was killed by Harrison Walker. Says the strange being visited his premises and killed 7 dogs, 2 of which were eaten. The monster sprang on him. Let's see if there's a description of it. Okay, here it is. The creature, or something similar, has been sighted since those days right up to modern times. Many are left wondering what terrorized the Great Dismal Swamp. Could it be an actual werewolf or perhaps a Bigfoot type creature? Some of these tales are like just older than times of slavery. You know, British colonialists saw these things. And, you know, who's to say that that's another thing that we were talking about the live stream last night. We were just talking about cryptids. The live stream, we talk about everything. We have a lot of fun. If you've not been to a live stream, I encourage you guys to have come out and have fun with us. But someone had brought up the Roanoke colony. Now, the Dismal Swamp is literally on the border of North Carolina, Virginia. And if this creature roamed that forest at that time, it wouldn't be too much to think that it ran into this colony, you know? Who knows? But slaves used to have old tales about this werewolf-like creature. So yeah, the Great Dismal Swamp is a I hate that word hot spot, but yeah, I guess it would be a hot spot. Shit, guys, just as I was turning my computer off, I found this. Let me switch this camera real quick. Lost colony enthusiasts discover a few clues in the swamp. Wow, this upload has just gone a different direction than I thought it was going to go. Great Dismal Swamp of North Carolina and Virginia. After trudging for 2 hours through thick vegetation to a blurry mark found on Google Earth, George Ray started making up a song. If you are lost, I'll find you tomorrow. He sang in a thick southern drawl. Or perhaps he'll find you 4 centuries later. Ray is one of many amateur archaeologists entranced by the lost colony, the 117 English settlers who disappeared from North Carolina Outer Banks in the late 1500s, leaving a single clue to their fate. In all the years since, no one has found much of anything else. But there has been stories about a rotting boat in the Great Dismal Swamp a national wildlife refuge that straddles North Carolina's border with Virginia. Ray's colleagues think the colonialists may have passed through the swamp after leaving Roanoke. They studied satellite images until they found something that looked like a boat. We are not looking for gold, we are looking for history. And then it goes on to just talk a little bit about, you know, the lost colony and such. But I believe Croton was the word that they had carved on a tree. They had carved Crow, C-R-O, but at the colony or the fort at Roanoke, they had carved Croton. Croton is a Native American tribe that was there back in the day. But interestingly enough, Croton was a small Native American ethnic group living in the coastal areas of what is now North Carolina. They may have been a branch of larger Roanoke people or allied with them. They spoke Algonquin, which I'm part Mohawk, and I know that we have our own lores and such with werewolves, the Wendigo, and other things like that, which does not have a deer head. But my cat's sneezing. Thanks, buddy. But they have a creature called the Wyrm, W-Y-R-M, and it is a white wolf-like creature. Werewolf, the Apocalypse Glossary. Eaters of Soul, only banneth. So they actually, the 11 non-American tribes also took many. They actually sacrificed a whole tribe to stop these creatures from attacking them. And these creatures are said to look like a large wolf. Interestingly enough, from the... I gotta check and see this. Oh my God. So, there's a Garou tribe. Garou tribe. Werewolf, the Apocalypse. And this is really interesting. I did not think my upload was going to go like this. So yeah, essentially, these creatures had been roaming that land for a very long time and terrorizing the native tribes that lived there. And eventually the slaves had run into them. The landowners obviously knew about them. So yeah, wow. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff right there. I didn't think this upload was going to go that way, but could a Dogman be responsible for the demise of the lost colony? Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Very interesting, though. Very interesting. I don't know. What do you guys think? I really did not think this upload was going to go this way, so I apologize. But, you know, I love it. I love how we learn things as we go. I know I did an upload about the Dismal Swamp and the slaves that ran into there, but I never talked about the lost colony. And it's just weird how last night, Sunshine, the subscriber's name, had mentioned it. And here we are now starting something completely different, and we worked our way to it unintentionally. Cool. Let's get into the next part of today's upload. So I said that I was going to share a little bit of that information that the gentleman shared with me about what these DUMBs, deep underground military bases, informants have mentioned underground tunnels and facilities in New Mexico at Dulce, Sunspot, Datil, Corona, Teos, which we were just talking about last night. I had asked about Teos and that vibrating sound people claim to hear. Albuquerque, Arizona in the Santa Catalina Mountains, Colorado at Delta, Grand Mesa, Colorado Springs, California, Needles, Edward Air Force Base, Fort Irwin, Norton Air Force Base, and Morongo Valley. Obviously the Tehachapi Mountains, Nevada, Blue Diamond, Nels Air Force Base, Groom Lake, Papos Lake area, Quartzite Mountain, and Tonopah. So those are some military bases under those areas, just within, what would that be? The Four Corners? That'd be the Four Corners, wouldn't it? I believe so. So there's another connection of the weirdness, that high strangeness. Like, I truly believe that in Utah, close by Skinwalker Ranch, there is a underground base there. And I really think that that's a big reason why all that high strangeness happens there. I'm going to have to go through this email and go a little deeper in it. It's a very, I print everything out this guy sends me, and we're talking pages. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but there's a good chunk of pages right there. But, he was also talking to me recently about some of these super soldier programs. And when you think of these super soldiers, the ones that have sat in like the Montauk chair and conjured up these freaking monsters that have taken the head honchos out that are in the area, our government is using those children, because they were all children that sat in that Montauk chair, as weapons of war against these alien-like creatures. I truly believe that these dog-headed aliens that the Sumerians had talked about are the precursor of the modern day Dogman that we have now. Obviously, if these creatures were 10 times smarter than the Dogman that we have now, they were able to fly or, travel through space, time, or however they got here. And maybe Dogman has a little bit of that left to where, they can go through portals and such. But, here's something real interesting that just popped into my head. What if probably a stretch, but what if X-Men is a soft disclosure. Not the mutant things that not like as crazy as the X-Men is, but the school, Xavier's school for the gifted youth, that Montauk chair. Coincidentally, he's sitting in that wheelchair. I know he can't walk, but is that some sort of representation? These teenage youths that have all these powers. We know that these super soldier programs used kids that had powers, that had these, I guess almost supernatural kind of aura to them. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I did not think this upload was going to go that way. I'm kind of caught off guard with that whole Dismal Swamp thing because I wasn't going to go that way with it. I actually had one other experience that I was going to share, but it sounded a little far-fetched for me. But then I thought of another encounter that's in one of Tom Lyons' books, and not saying that is a far-fetched experience, but it almost didn't fit into, here, I'll share it right now. A dog person like encounter. And I'll explain after. I had this encounter when I was around 5 years old. I was living with my mom in an apartment in Tucson, Arizona. My mom worked as a waitress to pay the bills, provide a roof over my head, and food in the refrigerator. She worked nights, and even though I was young, she gave me the responsibility of getting myself ready for bed. One August night during a full moon, I lie awake in my bed. The window was open in order to cool off the room. I'm not sure what had stirred me, but as I lie in bed, I looked around my bedroom. The light from the moon lit up the entire room. I could see everything clearly and was just looking around the room when I happened to notice the vent above my bedroom door. Just a standard vent for air, nothing special, but while I was looking at it, a thick black smoke issued slowly out of it. It rolled out of the vent and toward the floor in front of the door. While I watched it, it took form. It became a woman's old-fashioned style dress. It had a bodance and a bell shape. The shoulders were puffed out and the waist was thin where the bell went out to the floor. It was black with white flowered pattern on it. Like the old Victorian style dresses, it went all the way high on the neck. The head was not a human one. It looked like a black German shepherd. It was panting and facing the right. As I watched it, it slowly turned its gaze towards me. Still panting, I saw its eyes catching the reflection in the moon. I screamed in horror and rushed toward the light switch that was to the left of the door. After turning on the lights, it became a thick black smoke again and issued back into the vent. It took several seconds for it to disappear into the vent after I had turned the lights on. I never saw anything like it again and refused to sleep with the lights off for many years. So the one experience that reminds me of is the lady who had, I think it was Ohio. She had rented a kind of a summer house, and she was only there for like a couple weeks. But she looks out the window. She hears this ruckus and looks out the window and sees this Dogman clawing at the foundation of the house, right? And she's freaked out. She's scared. Goes on a couple days. She calls somebody. They come. She sees it outside as the person that's coming to look at the house to check on her is pulling in the driveway. So she immediately kind of rushes out and gets him inside quickly. They don't see it. The thing's gone, but there is a hole dug where this thing was. So it's obvious some physical proof. And scratches. So he leaves, and she eventually decides, hey, I'm going to leave the next morning of. And she hears ticking of the claws or nails on the floor into her room. And she sees this. She wakes up, and this Dogman kind of entity is in her room staring at her. I forget exactly how, but at the end of the experience, she opens this one door that she didn't open. She knew it was to the basement, but when she went down into the basement, almost where this thing was kind of clawing at the foundation, she opens that door, and it's a taxidermist's room. So the guy who owned this cabin was a taxidermist. And she thinks possibly that this guy may have killed a Dogman or may have stuffed one, and that was just the result, the spirit of the creature. Who knows? And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed today's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we have and deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.